Yeah, I know. You're great. How are you? I didn't even see you today. I know. Yes. Her backpack's in the classroom.
I told her to take down and just, and then I just know her and just work on her. Yes, she walked in and said, oh, I said, that means go to the option.
I'll now call to order the February 18th, 2025 school board meeting of the Stanwood-Camano School District Board of Directors. All of our directors are present in person, Director Murray, Director Evans, and myself. And joining us online is Director King. Thank you for not being here in person and keeping us all healthy. And Director Foster is joining us online. Both of our student representatives are here, Elizabeth and Luke. Nice to have you here tonight. Would you please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today we're offering two opportunities for the public to speak. Comments specific to the consent agenda will be allowed prior to the vote on those items. Citizens who have submitted a request to speak during the public comment section of the agenda will be called upon to make their comments at that time, which is near the end of the meeting. You have the agenda before you for the February 18, 2025 regular school board meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the February 18, 2025 regular school board meeting as written?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Director Evans, seconded by Director Murray. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. That passes unanimously.
I don't think Director Foster voted.
What?
I don't think Director Foster voted. I mean, it's not important other than for the record, but I just.
Are you waiting to hear from me?
Just say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. The board has had the opportunity to review the February 4th, 2025 regular board meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes? And I believe at this meeting it was myself, Director Evans, and Director King present. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the February 4th, 2025 regular board meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Director Evans. Director King, did you want to second that?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. That passes unanimously.
Please note for the record that I abstained.
And so did Director Foster. Thank you.
Can Director King just say his aye one more time so we can hear it? I didn't hear his aye. And we need three.
Okay, Director King, were you an aye?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, it is time for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The superintendent's report begins with donations tonight, which will be read in by our student representatives to the school board, Elizabeth Burton and Luke Hoffman.
$500 from the Camano Arts Association in support of the Stanwood High School Arts Department.
$474.24 in school rebates from Firefly Images for Elder Bay Elementary School.
A donation of new instruments and equipment in support of the Stanwood High School drumline from the Stanwood High School Band Boosters, valued at $19,805.55.
$717.40 from Utsalati Elementary School Booster Club to help cover the field trip transportation costs to the YMCA.
$397.80 from the Cedar Home Elementary School PTO to cover field trip transportation costs to Riverside Lanes.
$113.06 rebate from Ohio Pile Prints to Stanwood High School from proceeds of Spartan Gear sales.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, and thank you to all of our donors. I think it's appropriate to highlight the SHS Band Booster donation totaling nearly $20,000 to support the famous SHS drumline. So thank you for those donations. The next item on the superintendent's report is a school data and achievement report by Principal Jennifer Allen from Twin City Elementary.
Good evening. Thank you all for having me tonight. I am the principal at Twin City Elementary, and I'm excited to be here tonight to share my updated school report with you. So my presentation tonight is really going to focus on achievement. I was here in September of 2024 for my first presentation, where I got to just highlight the beginning of the year data that I had collected on students and what our plan was for the year. Tonight I'm going to really be able to focus on what we've accomplished so far at our mid-year point, and then looking forward to how we expect to spend the year, and to end the year, for the rest of the year. So just to recap, when I was here in September, these were my 4 big focuses. Closing the achievement gaps with student data, prioritizing core instruction for all of our students, creating flexible groupings for our interventions, and increasing student engagement by a reduction of tardies, absences, and visits to the health room. So those are the things I want to highlight tonight. I want to begin with math. We have been using the Delta Math program very strategically this year, and this is our middle of the year data. The yellow that you can see on the graph is below benchmark data, the green is at benchmark data, and the blue is above benchmark data. And I just want to take a moment and pause here because this data is really phenomenal, and I'm very proud of it. We have really 3 of our 6th grade levels performing exactly where we would want them to be. Our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades are lagging just a little bit in what we would hope for and expect. But in those 3 grade levels, we really just have begun to wander into fractions and decimals. And those 2 concepts really do trick our students up a little bit in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So in response to this, we have secured grants from the Frax company for 80 seats for an online program that really does focus on that numerical operations around fractions, and we begin to use that during our intervention time. So excited to look at the data and celebrate the wins, but also look at the data and make plans to address where we see that there are some holes and areas to go. So just sort of an overview of how are we closing the gaps in math. We have been assessing our students using the Delta Math assessment screeners. In October, we began our What I Need Win intervention times for all students in grades 1 through 5, 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Our staff have been working across grade levels in order to collaborate and extend our intervention time together. And our instructional groups for students have been adjusted every 6 to 8 weeks. So one thing I want to point out here is by allowing and having students and staff collaborate together during those intervention times, we're really able to extend what is sort of a limited resource, which is the ability to have smaller group instruction for students. By our 2nd and 3rd grade teams working together and our 4th and 5th grade teams working together, we're working smarter and also being able to work harder to intervene with those students that we know kind of right now need the most intervention. So I just kind of want to highlight and shout out those particular grade levels around math. Moving on to literacy, we gave the DIBELS assessments, which is connected to our CKLA Amplify curriculum. And again, so you're seeing progress data from the middle of the year. Red is students who are below benchmark. Yellow is students that are called approaching benchmark. Green is at benchmark, and blue is above the benchmark. So again, I feel like there's a lot of celebrations here. While there are still students, in that red area, a little bit of that is to be expected. So our kindergarten and our 1st grade data do still have a considerable number of students that are sort of below where we would want them to be. But this assessment tests them on end of the year standards. And at this point in time in our curriculum, in kindergarten, we've only introduced letter sounds and they're just now learning letter names. And in 1st grade, we've only introduced about 50% of the vowel blends and digraphs that students would need in order to be able to, appropriately read CVC words or decode reading. And so the fact that we have 50% or better of students performing already at grade level or towards those end of the year expectations, I think is a celebration. But also we have sort of doubled down in those early grade levels because we know early intervention for reading is key to success. And so our kindergarten team has identified some students where we've begun using that WIN time, that what I need time to do intervention on letter name and sound for our kindergartners. And in 1st grade, we are doing what we would call a double dose for our students that are in that red. So the 23 students that are identified that are really still struggling with those very early reading skills are getting twice the amount of intervention a day that other typical students are. 2nd and 3rd grade, I feel like, again, is a big celebration. These 2 grade levels are working together, both in planning for core instruction and during their intervention time. And you can see that working harder together and collaborating is really showing some great data. I want to just point out 2nd grade especially is my largest grade level in the building right now, and their data looks really strong. 4th and 5th grade, again, working together and collaborating as teams for both core instruction and that intervention time. And that focus has really moved for us into more of the focusing on comprehension and understanding what students are reading, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. So just to kind of highlight in words what I shared with you a moment ago, we have been assessing our students regularly. We're using that data to drive our decisions around core instruction that students are receiving, as well as during our intervention time. And then, like I shared, we have sort of doubled up on some interventions for students where we see that we need it. One of the things that I think, too, has been really helpful is we've been doing some supplementing in literacy with some other programs in addition to CKLA. While it's a fantastic program and really has helped our students achieve, during that intervention block, we've been even more strategic in what we're working on with students and have found some great intervention materials to be able to use for that, in addition to the intervention materials that are part of Amplify. So I feel like kids are really getting twice the exposure that they need to our core curriculum, as well as some of those really specific phonics and decoding interventions that they might need to become stronger readers. The other data that I want to share with you kind of go with the last couple of recap points that I made at the beginning, which is how I ended with you in September. I've been tracking behavioral data across the school year, and as you can see here, I'm making great strides with that. This is a huge celebration for our school. We have across the 3 years that we've been working on our school improvement plan, really put a lot of time and attention into creating structures and systems for students to deal with behavior, supporting teachers in helping students with behavior issues in the classroom, as well as creating a system for students to get support outside of the classroom. And each month, we just are continuing to see less and less behaviors across the school. And then in addition, I've been also watching our health room data. And the reason I want to present this to you is sometimes students go to the health room for not health room reasons. They're there because maybe what they're doing in the classroom is hard, or they really need emotional support, or they need a break. So we have been tracking visits to our health room as well. And this is a lot of bars for you to look at one time, but I would say we were averaging about 60 visits classroom per quarter in the first quarter, and we're well under that 50 visits per classroom if you would look across the day and across the building in our second quarter health room. There are some high numbers here, some classrooms with more visits than others, and I just would want to point out that we have several students at Twin City that have very specific medical needs, and that they have regular health room visits daily and even sometimes multiple times a day in order to monitor those individual health issues that they may have. But through this and through identifying the students that are visiting our health room most frequently, we've been able to determine whether or not the visits are really warranted, or should they be directed in other places, whether it's seeing the counselor or having access to the ability to take a break, or exploring some of those possibilities of more academic struggle over, health issues. So I would close tonight with, I'm going to end my year strong. We have 79 days left of school for me to work on the AAP goals that we currently have in place. And so in the area of academic, I plan to continue to review our Delta Math data and ingest our instruction and our WIN intervention group times. In behavior, we're going to work on creating some non-negotiables, is what we're calling them, to address student behavior in Tier 1. So what are the types of things that every student in every classroom can access or expect in order to address behavior, with the keys of keeping students engaged and keeping students in the classroom more frequently than not, and really limiting those disruptions to instruction. In attendance, we have been tracking attendance for students and looking at those critical absent students, meaning they have more than 10% or 15% of absences or tardies, and we've been holding family meetings to sort of get around some of the barriers that are part of that. And then the last piece with health room, just continue tracking health room visits and making sure that we're plugging kids into the right types of support. So that's Twin Cities' presentation. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question, actually. I'm curious about your instructional groups. First of all, how do you determine these instructional groups? Can I get some more details on that?
Sure. So we use data to make all of those decisions. So whether it's a piece of data that's more school-wide data, or looking at classroom-based assessments, we are grouping students up sort of by skill level or by ability level to some degree. And because we have deemed intervention time WIN what I need, some of those interventions are happening for students with skills that might be a repeat or a review of skills. Some of those things are intervention groups that are looking at skills or material that's right on grade level, and then some students are offered to are able to receive sort of an extension or an extra opportunity, if you will.
Okay, and also, how big are the groups? What are we talking about for sizing?
So for our students who are working on skills that are below grade level, or we're doing a remediation for, we're keeping those really small. So that could range from anywhere from 4 students to, I think, our largest in that particular range would maybe be like 12. For students that are working on grade level skills or above grade level skills, those might be a little bit bigger, maybe that 20 to 25.
And finally, how are you addressing, like, I know there's somewhat of a social stigma, especially among like young children about like, you know, this so-called like underperforming group. How are you addressing that through these groupings?
I don't think that during win time, we've tried to not make it so that like only 1 or 2 students are getting up and moving to a different group or a different location. That's sort of the beauty of intervention. Everybody's getting up, everybody's changing classrooms, everybody's sort of going to the place that they need to go. And so I hope that that alone sort of helps break down some of that stigma. And I think that we have a lot of celebration from students who are seeing great growth and learning and, you know, having a lot of those aha moments. And so they are, I think, equally as motivated to continue to participate in the groups. And because we switch groups up every 6 to 8 weeks, you're never sort of stuck in one place forever. And so that feels really good too. You might need a little bit of remediation or intervention on this particular skill, but maybe in the next round you're actually in an extension group because it's not, you know, an area of need for you. So lots of variety.
Thank you so much. My younger self would be very happy to hear about this. I just want to say
Thank you.
I was curious, I'm noticing that with grade 5, both in the doubles and in the Delta Math, they seem to have a little bit more challenge.
They do.
And I know that you spoke about the additional resources for the younger grades. What are you doing for those that are getting ready to move up to the middle school to make them successful?
Good question. So I identified grade 5 in August as my focus grade level. So it's the one that I've put the most sort of time, attention, and resources into. And that's because this particular grade level has been most impacted by COVID and school closures and, you know, hybrid learning and those types of things. And so we have more gaps in this particular grade level than we do probably any other. And we at Twin City Elementary have sort of doubled down to make sure that we are sending these kids to middle school next year as most prepared as possible. So one of the ways in which we're doing that is being really targeted with what we're doing for intervention and providing a lot of very specific skill development. So in this particular grade level in math, our 4th and 5th graders partner together, and then we also bring in a couple of extra staff during that time. So our intervention groups are even smaller. We've been doing pre-assessments with these students and giving them different math problems in order to figure out exactly what skill that they need to be working on. And so intervention group during math time is super skill specific. Same with our literacy time. So when we're grouping up for literacy, again, we're grouping across as many adults as we can pull in at the time. And they are also doing a lot of skill building work. So we've been using a lot of the intervention resources out of Amplify, as well as supplementing a little bit with the resources that we have through Really Great Reading. We've been very intentional in working with this student on building some of those decoding skills that they may have missed in kindergarten or 1st grade, when typically those would have been taught. And we've also focused quite a lot on comprehension strategies for these students and how do you respond to reading through writing. So how do you give a written response that's comprehensive? So while the data looks a little shaky still, I stand here very confidently that by the end of the year, that gap will get smaller and smaller as we go along. So.
The other question I have for you is in regards to your closing gaps in health room visits.
Mm-hmm.
When I am looking at, I'm guessing these are the teachers' names for the classrooms across the bottom.
Yes.
Are those in grade level order, or are they mixed?
That is in grade level order from 5th to kinder.
Looks like we added a couple of additional teachers in there as well, maybe 3.
So in the second graph, we had some visits from teachers who maybe hadn't had visits in the first quarter.
Okay.
Does that
So
make
this
sense?
isn't all of the teachers at your school, this is
That
just
is-
all of the teachers that had visits?
Healthcare visits.
That's all. In quarter 2, that's every teacher in the building. In
Okay.
quarter 1, it's not every teacher in the building because not every teacher had a student who had a health room visit.
Got it. So it's not that we added additional teachers to the school, it's just they hadn't had a health room visit in the first round, but now they do.
Correct. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer, and I appreciate the data Mrs. Allen shared, specifically how it supports goal 1 of our strategic plan around foundational early learning for every student. Thanks again, Jennifer. Next, our exceptional maintenance director, Kevin Cruz, will give us an update on the climatization project that's been ongoing at Utsalati Elementary School.
Good evening, everybody. Just to give you a quick overview of what's been going on at Utsalati ever since its construction, roughly about 4 or 5 years after Utsalati was constructed, we had sub-freezing temperatures, and at that point we had our first water burst, which was in the computer lab. About a few years after that, we had some freezing temperatures again, and this time we had water line bursts in the kindergarten area as well as the custodial area. And a few more years went by, and then we experienced it again in the staff area. At that point, the maintenance manager at that time directed one of the employees to go above that ceiling grid and just seal off any outside light that he could see. That poses some problems when you do that because we interrupt how the roof area is supposed to breathe. But at that point, anything was better than nothing. And so we went by without any issues for a while, and then 2 years ago, we had sub-freezing temperatures again, in which we had another water line break in the staff area. And then last year, we had our record lows, 13 degrees at Utsalati. We had 3 water bursts and did extensive damage, and thousands of dollars in restoration damage. So that kind of brings us up to speed a little bit of the magnitude of what we're dealing with at that school. So we hired a consultant, an envelope consultant, which also brought in a mechanical contractor to study the school and determine what deficiencies that we have and where we can improve on this. And so this brings us up to date where we're at right now. And so this picture that is up right now is just an aerial view of Utsalati Elementary. Okay, we are missing some pictures in here. Oh, here we go. We got it. All right. So what we have here is on the right side is obviously an aerial view of Utsalati Elementary, which was in the first view. And on the left side now, this is a picture done with an infrared camera on a drone. So you can kind of get a good feel of how much heat loss is out of that building through the roof line. So any place
Just assume yellow is bad, right?
the yellow is bad.
Just confirming that my brain is reading that correctly, and just need to make sure, just making sure.
So on this picture, this infrared picture, if you look a little bit over to the right a little bit, you'll see like a little square that's got some dark areas. That happens to be a mechanical room on maybe what we call the 3rd level. That has a sheetrock ceiling. So therefore, we don't get any heat loss out of that. That's what we would like to see in the entire school looking like. So, now this view is of the kindergarten wing, the exterior wall. So obviously, you can see where we have windows that are inefficient. We have door seals that are inefficient. And just as an overview, you see the orange on the whole exterior wall. That is heat loss. And because we have back insulation in those, we don't have any exterior insulation like we do nowadays. So yeah, that is atypical of what you're going to see of this type of construction of that era. So here we go. Once again, we are on an aerial view of that, and And once again, you can see the major heat loss, which is at the top. There we go. And now this view is of the second floor. It's closer to the library area. And so once again, you can see all the heat loss. Now, this is where the consultant comes in and gives us recommendations of what we can do to help alleviate part of the problem. Obviously, the problem lies with the insulation and how the insulation was applied. And the ultimate repair would be to redo all the insulation and put it on top of the roof instead of under the roof deck. But that is cost prohibitive and that is not something that we can do. So the other measures that we can do is we can select certain areas and remove the and replace some of the insulation. We can we have gaps in the vapor barrier. Some of those gaps are just because of deterioration and age. It gets a lot of heat up in that area during the summertime, and after a while things start to fall and shift, and so that's one thing that we can do. We can recommission the HVAC system and rebalance it. That would be a major thing to do, but that would certainly help because we have a negative pressure inside the building, and to create a positive pressure in that building would certainly help keep the cold air out. We can seal the gaps in the vapor barrier. All the way around the exterior of that building. Normally, it's not customary to insulate those, but in our case, it would help us to insulate those. We have mechanical systems that are in those areas. The ductwork of those mechanical systems can be insulated. And some of these measures we've already started doing. And in all the areas that we have known to have breaks in, especially last year, we have put heat trace tapes on those areas. We have insulated those areas, and this year we had no problems. So so these are just some of the examples of deficiencies that we have. So the picture on the far left, obviously, you can see we're supposed to have batt insulation. In that particular area, it's missing. So was it there during construction? Who knows? Probably was, probably wasn't. In the middle picture, we have open insulation gaps. And the same thing with the picture on the right. You can see, so the white is what is our vapor barrier that we have. And you can see where the airway is pointing to where it is just starting to fall down. And so we have lots of areas like that we have been working diligently on trying to tape back up again. Once again, here we are with they discovered air gaps that can be addressed, that will help out with that. And a lot of these things we are just discovering for the first time ourselves. We're going to wait to come back to that. So here we go, we can talk about that. So the overview of the report. So we can't totally resolve the issue of freezing and frozen pipes, but because of the construction and design of the building. But however, we can greatly improve our chances of addressing these issues that we are found in these reports. So by adding pipe insulation to the fire sprinkler system, by adding heat trace tapes to all the problem areas, to restoring the existing insulation and vapor barrier, to insulating the HVAC ductwork, and most importantly, commissioning the HVAC of the building. We can replace batt insulation with foiled rigid insulation in certain areas, and then replacing door seals. Those are some of the suggestions that the report calls for. Now, how does this report relate to the other schools that we have? So, Atslani, Alger Bay, Cedar Home, and Port Susan were all built in the same era. So yes, all of these issues can translate over to those 4 schools as well. So probably typically because they have the same design built, these fixes could translate right over to those buildings. Now, what makes the design of these 4 schools different than all of our other schools? Well, these 4 schools, the insulation is underneath the roof deck. On all of our other schools, the insulation is on top of the roof deck. And so you wonder, well, how did that happen? Well, that was the design and the construction of that era that these buildings were built in. It's not any flaws that were in, it just happened to be, if you were a contractor and you were building a commercial building of that magnitude back in those times, that's the construction that you're gonna have. So we can't change that, but we can certainly improve it. And so in closing, what I would like to say is that all of our schools are constructed very well. So I don't want anybody to leave here with the notion that we have poorly constructed schools. We have very good constructed schools. I'm very proud of them. But we have design flaws in them. The energy codes have changed considerably. That's why our high school, we have no problems with the high school because the energy codes have changed. Has the construction, has the insulation changed? In some respects, yes, to prevent all of this. So we really did very little preparation with our high school because we didn't know how it was going to perform. It performed perfectly last year. And so, anyway, what I'm trying to say is we have very good constructed schools. Any questions?
This might be a bit of a question for Ruth as well. So I know that we have an open claim with risk management for the damages, and most of those are, we have to pay for them and then they come back, like they reimburse us. How much of that, I think maybe he had a asterisk or something up here, 40,000 in repairs to be reimbursed by risk pool?
That's a separate grant that we're able to access for the repairs to for prevention.
Okay.
All of the repairs that we did prior, due to the freeze that's already happened,
That's already
those have
done.
all been reimbursed.
Okay. And did we do any, any of these remediation steps, or did we do anything to improve anything with those repairs? Or was that just we kind of set ourselves back to ground zero with those?
Kevin can speak with that. Back to Brenda.
Our maintenance department has done considerable amount of work because there was no way I was going to allow our community to be put in that position that we found ourselves in last year. So we have worked diligently on insulating every known area to prevent. Now, you can't foresee anything, a lot of things, but every known area that we know at that school, we have addressed.
Okay, so $40,000 with the asterisk is an additional grant.
Correct.
Toward the 100,000 that suggests
Oh,
repairs.
it's not
future
on top
repairs.
of. It's no. Okay. And then $250 a square foot reimbursed by Cassie. I'm guessing that's like an efficiency.
I don't think that we're going to qualify for that. And the reason why is because they want, right now we have an R30 to an R38 installation in that school. They want us to go to an R45, which we found out today was going to be too thick for that. And so we're not going to qualify for that.
Got it. Okay. So we're talking ballpark 100,000, and the grant is for $40,000 for just one school.
Just
that's a lot.
And do the other schools qualify if we were to apply for the other ones, or you only get to apply once?
I believe this year we can only apply once. If they continue those grants, then possibly we could apply for another in another year.
Is that 100,000 per school, or is that just?
This would be, that's a lot.
It's just.
Now, yes, we have experienced issues at our other 3 sites, which have the same design construction, but not near as frequently as we have at Salati.
If I'm not mistaken, we said we were using these reports to sort of extrapolate the data to the other ones instead of paying for individual.
That's right. Yes, so we're in phase 2, edging towards phase 3 of this report from this contractor, and we think we can apply, and we can because of how the build out, especially for 2 other schools, Cedar Home and El Bay, some of the known gaps that we see, we would apply them across the other areas.
So we could anticipate, once we've figured out Atsalati and we figured out how it extrapolates or like correlates to the other two schools, a similar report to maybe what we're seeing?
I think we'd go in and make an assessment based on, like you saw in the pictures and the photos, to see if we're in that situation, or if it's that degraded first, and apply it back from there.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not a question. I'd just like to thank you for your excellent reports. And your department's last report here was very good. Wish you could have been here for it. Yeah, your deputy did a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. I just want to call out again, appreciate the rest of the capital projects team with Ruth, Floyd, and Jeff Silverman, and for continuing to look for grant opportunities that can help mitigate some of these costs that we're incurring. Also for the maintenance team to get on board so quick and make those repairs in advance of last week's cold weather. So good job. Thank you. That is the end of the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. We have 8 items here. Anyone in attendance may speak to the items contained in the consent agenda, and only those items contained in the consent agenda at this time. This is not the portion of the meeting for open public comment on items outside of the consent agenda. Open public comment is coming up soon. Are there any board directors who wish to pull any items from the consent agenda for discussion? Hearing none. Are there anybody in the attendance who would like to speak to any of these items on the consent agenda? No one online? All right, seeing no one, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 8?
So moved.
Moved by Director Murray, and that was seconded by Director King?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor of approving consent agenda items 1 through 8, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Okay. All right. We have no old business to discuss. We are up to public comment. Citizens wishing to address the board are asked to submit online requests using the public comment link on our website or by email 2 hours prior to the board meeting start time. For those attending the meeting in person, request forms are available in the boardroom for submission prior to the meeting start time. Citizens who wish to provide documents to board directors will hand them to the recording secretary for distribution after the meeting. The board president will call upon individuals who have requested to speak during the public comment section of the agenda. Individuals will state their name for the record and be allowed 3 minutes to speak. And we have 3 requests today for public comment. To be respectful of our speakers, please refrain from responding to the comments of the speakers as a matter of order, because this is the board's business meeting. The board is providing an opportunity for the public to comment. However, the board does not create discussion on these comments within the meeting as they are not part of the agenda. Comments will be followed up on after the meeting if that is appropriate. When it's your turn to comment, please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak. There's a timer on the screen. The yellow light means you have 1 minute left, and the red light means that your time to address the board is up. Our first speaker today is Tom Miller.
Good evening, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. Tom Miller. I live at 1490 Country Club Drive on Camino Island. And I'm here to speak to you in regards to the agenda item that the board has on this evening for discussion of succession planning and search for a new superintendent, and urge you to table that motion for 6 months. And my purpose is threefold for you. First, just a little background. I'm a retired chief of police from both cities of Edmonds and Oak Harbor, and was on the city council in Edmonds for 5 years, city council president for 2 years. And I share that only so you know that I come with perspective of having been in an executive level position similar to the superintendent, and as an elected official as well, and making decisions about going out to search for executive positions. From my perspective, it's premature to be talking about going out to look for another superintendent, and I'll give you 3 reasons of why I believe that. First, I met Mr. Ovenall only a month ago when he was sworn in as the interim superintendent, and spoke to him briefly after that. And he presents himself as a person who is very sincere, honest, and humble. And it's a nice quality and character traits that I place, quite frankly, highly above any academic credentials anyone might bring to the school district as a potential candidate for superintendent. Mr. Ovenall, in the time that I spoke with him, although I just met him last month, I watched as several people in the community stood up, some of them groups that opposed each other and past issues of this board, but all spoke in favor of Mr. Ovenall being the superintendent. That is a very admirable quality, somebody who can bring together disparate groups in the community in a very short period of time and have them support Mr. Ovenall for superintendent. And also the fact that in the short time that he's been here, this is probably the easiest board meeting I've been to in the last 3 years. It's remarkable. It's nice to see that. And I think he deserves a chance to spend at least 6 months to show you and demonstrate to you that he's very capable of doing this job on a permanent level. In fact, if you take the action tonight to go out and start looking for another superintendent, it's going to send a message to Mr. Ovenall, as it would me if I were a police chief in an interim role, that I can pretty much check out and just become a caretaker rather than really work hard to make this a tremendous school district. I don't think you want to send that message to Mr. Ovenall. I know you wouldn't intentionally want to send that message to Mr. Ovenall. And then finally, I think there's another reason, 2 other reasons. First of all, the school district itself has gone through a lot of turmoil in the last 3 years. And I think you've turned a page in the last month with the appointment of Mr. Ovenall, and keeping him in that role for at least the next 6 months gives him the chance to prove it's a live, real-time assessment center. And I hope that you'll consider that again. And my time is up, so I'll just end by saying I would really recommend and encourage you this evening to table that for 6 months. Give Mr. Ovenall the opportunity to prove himself as your future superintendent. In 6 months, if you don't think he's the right person, then you can spend the money that you would on a new superintendent, but that money should be used for the schools and the children, and not prematurely to go out and look for someone when the best person may be sitting right here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is John Russell.
It's going to be a tough act to follow. That was pretty good. Thank you very much. I was going to speak also in favor of the superintendent, and I'll do that in just a moment, but I also wanted to kind of on the fly here, I want to recognize that Kevin is very much right. I've served on the facility advisory committee several times over the years. We do have some schools that are very, very solid. We also have some schools that have some inherent issues. And we knew back for quite a long time, that's why we had things on the levy, the capital levy. That's why we've done things like the capital bond and some other things. So unfortunately, community, that's one of the things that happens when we have a levy that fails. Some of those projects get deferred into the regular budget. So, but anyway, I did want to reassure that I also feel as a community member that, and what I've been able to see on my advisory capacity is that we do have good schools. We just have some issues we need to take care of on. I also tonight you're going to discuss a process towards removing the interim from in front of our superintendent title. I think there's different paths that we can be taken. I would respectfully advise in your discussions that you consider costs, unknown quantity, or quality, I should say, district stability that a search may bring. There's also stakeholder input to consider. And this stakeholder believes that retaining Ryan may be a good choice at this point. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Brooke Knight.
Good evening, my name is Brooke Knight. I am a parent of a student in the district, and I'm also here to talk about the long-term search for our new superintendent. I have had the pleasure of working with Mr. Ovenall on a board in the community, and I think he's fantastic, and I think we would be very well served as a community if he was our superintendent on a permanent basis. However, I've not had that conversation with Mr. Ovenall to know whether that's something he's interested in or not. What I would like to say is that if we are going to search for a superintendent, I am concerned that we are not doing so in a very hasty manner. I believe that another district just last week announced that in our region announced that they will be hiring another superintendent. if we do decide to go through an open process, I think that we need to get the ball rolling quickly in order to ensure that we have a deep pool and are able to select the best candidate possible. The other piece that I really appreciated when we last chose our superintendent was the public participation in the process. And I really want to encourage that that is prioritized regardless of whether we choose someone internal or go outside. I think it's really important to have the input of our stakeholders, including our teachers, our parents, our students, and other people with a vested interest in our school district having the ability to weigh in, including people who may not have English as their first or preferred language, having means for all of the diverse stakeholders in our community to weigh in on that. And I know that there are many people here in this room tonight who would be interested and willing to participate in one way or another, roll up their sleeves, and help ensure that we have the opportunity to hear from those in our community most affected by this selection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the speakers for taking your time to share your thoughts with us today. We'll now move on to topics scheduled for board discussion. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak tonight? So we have two items for board discussion. The first is the superintendent succession plan, which we have heard three speakers on, and I'll open it for discussion at this time.
Just to clarify for the community, it's about the open conversation. Like, so it's not whether we like Ryan or not. It's just that level of transparency to make sure that we're having that conversation of what is our plan, what do we envision for our school district, how does that look, and to see like there are 5 directors and we all have a say and it should be even. So where does everybody land on that, and can we have that discussion, and do we have a consensus? And to Ms. Knight's point, if we have a consensus and it is that we want to open up that search, like we should be moving rather faster than slower on that. So it's not whether we like Ryan or Mr. Ovenel or not, it's that transparency piece for the community and making sure that we're having that conversation and we all can agree that we're moving forward with what we believe is the best for the district. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that this isn't anybody is mad or upset at Mr. Ovenel or anything like that. It's just having that transparent conversation in front of the community. So, I guess my one question would be, like, before we got started, and not to put Mr. Ovenel on the spot, because I didn't tell him I was going to do this before, but, like, is there an interest, right, first, because that probably is the largest question of where our conversation starts, you know? Because if that's a waste of resources, then, you know, maybe that leads our conversation somewhere else.
Yeah. Point well taken. I absolutely am interested in serving longer term as a superintendent. You know, for reasons I stated 6 weeks ago when I first sat here, it is in seeing continuity and continuing to move our district forward in a manner which I think it could.
Director Murray, comments, discussion?
Honestly, I'm not sure where to start this conversation exactly. I mean, all of the things Miranda has, our Director Evans has mentioned about transparency and the like is very, is on top of mind. I honestly think that we're already behind the 8 ball if we were to go ahead and do a search at this point. So I guess my thought on all of this is to at least extend the contract into next year and give Superintendent Ovenel an opportunity to put his best face forward and see what he can do for our district.
Thank you, Director. And our student reps, would you like to comment or discuss?
I think Omenel is a great choice for this position. I think he brings a lot of a different energy to this position. I think he has a lot of qualifications. I think he is a very honest and hardworking man, and I think he would be a great fit for this role. But that's just my opinion. And I honestly think that again, if we want to get the search started, I think we should have started it a while back. So I think right now, I think we should extend the Omenel's contract. But that is my opinion. Again.
Thank you.
Well, I've heard a lot of great things about Ovenel. He did used to be the principal of my school, after all, and I've heard from a lot of the seniors from when you were around that you were just generally a great guy. And from what I've seen so far, you seem like a great choice for it. That's all I have to say about that.
I would just clarify, I believe, in my personal opinion, that if we were going to extend the contract, it wouldn't make sense to just be for 6 months. I think it would make sense for it to be for an entire school year. If that's the road that we're trying to take, it seems counterintuitive for it to be shorter than one school year long, but that's just, if that's the direction we want to take, that would be my recommendation, would be the whole 25-26 school year.
Thank you, Director. And we are limited by law to the maximum of a 3-year contract is the most that the district can offer anyone. One of the concerns I had was with our finances now, over the past couple of years, we've been draining our reserves, and we're getting down there. And I know last time our search was in the tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know if it was 30, 40,000, whatever. And then you had moving costs on top of that. And we're needing to cut $3.5 to $5 million out of our budget. So
initial estimates.
Finances are a factor in this too. So often the average life of a superintendent is about 3 years, and we were blessed with Dr. Shoemake for 20 years, and I'd like to see someone else for another 20 years, or at least if they retire. And you're right, a lot of the superintendent searches are going on during this time frame now, so we are, I don't know if we get the best right now. Director King or Director Foster, do you want to weigh in on the discussion here?
Yes, I do.
Director King?
I, as a college department head, I hired many instructors over the years, and the worst part ever, and the best resume of anybody. And so I think it's very valuable to hire, to at least extend the contract a year or more, to just feel that board with time in place, to see more from you. I already know a lot about them, and everything I've heard is good. And so, yes, I would say at least a year additional contract or more, because he's a known quantity. And whereas we could do an extensive search and wind up with somebody that we didn't know everything about them. Yeah, so I would recommend going let's at least another year.
Thank you, Director King. Director Foster, do you want to comment or discuss?
I'll just say, I'm kind of middle of the road on this, but I hear quite a few recommendations, and I do know the standard is 3 years, and I think thus far, I've seen good cohesive movement so I'm not interested in spending $40,000 or $50,000 more dollars when we're $3 million in the hole. So I think that would have a huge impact on that too. Keeping him and saving that money. And no quantity, like Steve said.
Thank you, Director Foster. And as some of our public comments today, I think it's important that we hear from all of our stakeholders, our students, our staff, the community members. What I've heard from staff and community members have been very positive, and I would like to see us, get more input on a formal basis, if we could. Other comments?
Well, how would you recommend, like, what would you, like, I agree, like, additional feedback, but like, what would you suggest, how we get that? Like, put it as like a topic for people to come and speak on, or we have like a community forum, or we send out a survey, like, what do you think?
Well, rather than the few people that do comment here, we go around to the different schools at different times and listen to the parents and the community members and even the students there.
So you want, I'm not arguing, I'm asking
Right.
for clarification. You want us to schedule visits to the schools to meet, like, are you talking like a planned community forum where people get to come, or like, what do you think?
No, a community forum where parents and
Okay.
even community members can come and comment on it, but not just depend on people coming into here, but go out to the island and, you know.
Yeah. A pretty big ask for our staff, but I think if we are going to do that, which I'm not against, we would need to do that sooner rather than later, again, time frame wise, right? So is that something, and maybe that's a question for Mr. Ovenel, is that something that we could whip up pretty fast, or like, I don't know what the logistics of that are.
Well, we could establish a norm for gathering information. I think it would be, the timing is tight, but I'm looking at Evan over there shaking his head saying, yes, we could probably do something like that. And I think probably I would abstain, of course, from that, but it could help with the structure.
Yeah, sounds great, I love it.
Do we have consensus to move forward with getting input from our stakeholders?
Director King.
Director King?
Yeah, I would propose going with right away with a 1-year extension beyond the end of this school year to get flooders to take care of the timing problem and give plenty of time to accomplish what we're talking about here because the timeline is really short to just accomplish everything within the semester.
And his current contract, his interim, goes through the end of June of this year, so I think we would be safe having a month or two to have input.
Yeah, either extend the interim for another year or make a 1-year full superintendent position, whether it would be more appropriate, with the hope that within that time we could come to the point where we'd be ready to do a full 3-year contract. But beyond that.
I think that's a really great compromise. My only question to that, and again, not arguing, just questioning, my only question to that would be, right now we don't have a deputy superintendent, and if we're extending it for just 1 year, and we're unsure what we're doing, what does that look like for a deputy superintendent next year? Because I know part of your interim contract is that you get that position back. So like, again, not rooting against you or anything, please don't take it that way. I'm just saying, like, what does that look like? Are we putting off having a deputy superintendent again for 25-26, and you're just doing double the work because that feels yucky? Or like, what are we doing there? You're not going to be able to answer that because we're literally just throwing this at.
No, I think I can answer that. I think I can answer that. I'll go back to our financial situation, and I think although it is double work, there's a lot of the work that's been spread across the rest of people in this building and throughout the district. So thanks to them, and it's a position that we're in, and so sometimes when we're in these positions, we do what we need to do for the short term at least. And in the first 6 weeks, I think it's been manageable, and I haven't seen. At least I haven't seen a gap that we need to address it, and we would do that if we needed to. So to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you would be comfortable going 25-26 with not filling the deputy superintendent role, extending your contract for 1 year so that we have that cushion and we could facilitate community forums in a more reasonable time frame than the next 4 days. Or something along these lines.
Maybe in the next month or 2.
Month or 2 like that would be like, yeah, like.
It's good, but.
Thanks for that. And the reason the structure works is because that some of those duties are absorbed by other members of the team. So out across the system, those duties are taken on. Some of them have incurred stipend, but often just on top of the original workload. So manageable, yes. Short term, long term, we need to look at how we organize. It doesn't look like I answered your question.
No, like, does short term mean for 1 year? Like, you're okay with 1 year, or are you short term only through the end of this year? Like, I guess that's my clarifying question.
I think in the next year we're going to need to look at how the organization looks, across the system. So in the short term, yes. I pause on.
Define short term.
Well, through end of June 30th.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
So
25 or 26 June?
This June. He's talking this June. So he's saying that if we decide to extend 1 year contracts so that we can have these conversations, potentially we could not fill the deputy superintendent role. However, we would have to revisit how we have those jobs doled out currently. And if perhaps, even if it's not a deputy superintendent role, maybe it's a different role that we would need to put into place. Is that what I'm understanding?
It's responsibilities from within the deputy superintendent role that are taken up by other members of cabinet, principals across the system, that kind of thing. So the work still happens.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibilities are still there. It's not organized into one role called the deputy superintendent, but it still occurs.
Does it need an extra body?
I don't think that it needs an extra body at this moment in time.
We didn't have a deputy superintendent before. He's our very first one.
No, I understand, but we've had one for 3 years. So, like, I'm just trying to understand, like, we have that role for a reason. And
Yes.
so, like, and I understand these are temporary things, and I was not a big proponent of pushing work onto other people. So I'm just trying to understand if we make the decision to roll it out another year,
That's another year that
other
people are doing
like, do we
extra
need to
work.
put a body in there, even if it's not in that particular time, like, title, but, like, does it require a body?
I guess what I'd like to say is I'd like to make an assessment in June, and the reason I would is because we'll have had 6 months by that point to have the work happen, to see what steps need to be taken.
Staffing would be the purview of the superintendent, as far as.
Correct, but I'm just trying to understand the repercussions of our decisions. That's all I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, financially, people-wise, like, you don't want to hire somebody just to have to let them go again the next year. Like, just long-term planning. Like, what are the repercussions of what we're discussing? That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
I think we'd like to hear some input from our finances too, what they're projected to be over the next couple of years.
Yes, and we have a
not tonight.
We have a
Take a breath.
we have a tentative. Yes.
Part of what 6 months would do also is to see what the legislature does. If there's any funding that will help with the budget situation. So that would be helpful to know before we make this decision as well.
Can I add one more thing?
Director Foster, go ahead.
Ryan's devoted 20 years of his life here, and he's worked for the school system, and I think that's huge, because he's not new, he's not from out of state, he knows what he's getting into, and I just see a lot of pluses. So that's my opinion, and putting someone on a year-to-year contract is not very stabilizing. Anyway, that's my opinion, we're on Title one, and I appreciate everybody's input, at least for coming to some agreements, and that's really promising. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Foster.
Can I just add a couple
Yes.
points? Thanks for that, and I appreciate the confidence of the comments here tonight. I have told a couple of directors that I feel like I'm on an interview on a daily basis, which I think is fine. I honestly think that's an okay thing. and not, it doesn't always happen that way. You don't always get to do it, and so I actually value that. The second piece is really around this staffing conversation and how we organize to make sure that we're serving the staff and students best in this district to continue to move forward. Will have to be something that we look at deeply, and I realize that, probably me not being able to give closure to that comment about a deputy superintendent is not settling, but I think that there needs to be more than 6 weeks to make the assessment.
We're going to have so much money, and how you spend that is going to be your staffing level there. To kind of summarize, are we kind of in consensus that, one, I think we still want to hear from all of our stakeholders, but are we looking at converting the interim contract to a superintendent contract and taking the interim off his name here for another year?
I believe that we would have consensus to sign a 1-year contract as actual superintendent and taking the work interim off there. I believe that is what I heard today.
But at some point in the next month or two here, we can take the interim off the name and make the superintendent contract good through the end of 26.
Yeah.
And
we do have others that are they're qualified to be superintendents within our workforce, is my understanding, but administration is not our purview. That would be Ryan's.
Okay. Director King?
What Betsy just said was, if you mean to qualified to be assistant superintendent, or?
We have another individual who could step right into the superintendent or deputy, any superintendent role. She's qualified, educated, ready, and I don't know how many we need, but when you're 3 million in the hole, you might want to start counting some heads.
I know we have a number of staff members that have superintendent credentials, but we only have one Ryan over now. All right. So I guess you can task our communications director, and we can get some input from stakeholders, and we will look at taking the interim off his name for the next year and a half here.
Well, I think the official statement is we would put that on, we have consensus to move to put that on, that decision on our consent agenda for our next meeting, so we could vote on that.
Yeah, we're not doing any voting
We're not
today. It
making
was only
any
a
decisions today.
discussion, yes.
Yes, okay.
And that would include extending the term through the end of the next school year?
As superintendent, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other discussions on item 1? All right. Thank you all for that. That was productive. Item number 2, the academic task force. I put it back on the schedule here. Superintendent Ovenell and I had a discussion here recently about ad hoc committees and different things, because we were looking at a number of things, and we are in agreement that we will follow our board policy as far as those task force ad hoc committees and that we approve and select members for and task them and develop a timeline. I've got some notes here, and I wanted to go over it with Superintendent Ovenell, and then we will have something to send out and present to the directors to look at, and then we can discuss it further at that
point. So you're gonna send us the stuff to discuss later?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to discuss it
Having
now?
a discussion tonight, so you're not having a discussion.
No, I just wanted to discuss that we are going to follow our policy in these committees and that, and then we will have another discussion with the superintendent and get his input. And we will send out some ideas and thoughts here for your input, and we will discuss that at the next meeting then.
Okay, so we're gonna put it on that's also gonna be on our next meeting?
Yeah. I have some thoughts here. You will get the superintendent's input on that. I'll send it out. You can add your input to it, and at that point, we'll discuss it, and if that's all right with all the directors.
Super confused, but I like having something to look at, so that'd be really great, yeah.
And we will get that out as soon as we have another meeting and go over it.
Framework is always good.
Yep,
Yeah.
love that, love everything about that.
And that's what we're trying to work towards. All right, any other discussion on item number 2? All right, we're at the best part here, student representative reports. Who goes first?
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Burton, and I'm the student representative from Stanwood High School. I would like to say that February is one of the busiest months for our ASB team. It's filled with memorable events, spirit days, and activities that keep the entire student body engaged. From organizing a winter formal to coordinating an inter-high leadership conference and preparing for upcoming spring events, ASB members are juggling responsibilities that require teamwork, innovation, and dedication. With so many moving parts, this month serves as a true test of our leadership and our organization. As the calendar fills up, the pressure is on, but so is the excitement, the positive energy, and the vigor, all of which we will be channeling into our work. The beginning of second semester has brought fresh academic challenges and new opportunities for growth. For example, in AP Language and Composition, students began reading Tim O'Brien's groundbreaking reflection on the Vietnam War, The Things They Carried. On the other hand, students in CP English 11 began reading The Great Gatsby. Both texts challenge students to engage with complex ideas and sharpen their analytical abilities, preparing them for advanced writing and discussion. Meanwhile, in chemistry, students carried out a lab experiment pertaining to the heat capacity of water and the effect that changes in temperature have on the properties of said water. And for our ASB class, as I mentioned prior, we've been incredibly late, as we are incredibly busy. We are currently working on our winter formal, our inter-high, the talent show, Driftwood, and many more projects that you guys will be hearing about soon. For winter formal, our theme this year is Meet Me at Midnight, and we have a flexible date of either February 28th or March 1st, depending on how basketball playoffs go. The date will be announced this upcoming Sunday. And regarding inter-high, it will be held on February 27th at our school. This leadership conference will host 17 or more schools leadership classes and feature workshops, breakout sessions, and activities to cultivate a culture of kindness throughout our local schools. As for our talent show, students in that committee have designed a promotion schedule, and the date is tentatively set for April. And finally, for Driftwood, which will also be held in April, students have begun logistically coordinating the event over the last several weeks. All of these events will bring our school together by creating a sense of community and camaraderie among students, staff, and even our community members, you guys. Meanwhile, our winter sports season is wrapping up and our spring one is on the horizon. Girls wrestling is on the state, taking with them many qualifiers, including Michaela Finch, Jordan O'Neill, Zoe Anderson, Haley Miller, Avalon Kahn, Signe Karras, Jason Zafrano, Emily Evans, Bronwyn Antes, Malia Alexander, and Ava J. San Nicholas. Boys swim is also set to take the stage at state, taking with them Gavin Plano, Lloyd Howe, Levi Steers, Lennon Bain, Austin Osborne, Xander Kraus, and Riley Tallquist. Spring sports kick off on March 3rd, which will include track and field, boys and girls golf, girls tennis, boys soccer, softball, and baseball. The upcoming weeks are set to be filled with fun and excitement for our students and our ASB. Kicking things off from tomorrow at 5:30 to 7:30, SHS will be hosting a registration informational night open to students in grades 8 through 11. This night will have valuable information about clubs, activities, college and high school and AP courses, and more of our school's excellent program offerings. Even if your student is already in attendance at SHS, if they're looking to get involved in clubs, classes, and other programs, this will be an absolutely amazing opportunity to check these programs out and ask any questions you may have. And I would like to thank everyone for their continued support of our students.
Thank you.
Good. After a bit of a delay from the snow, the semester has ended, and with that comes a lot of changes to classes, with students either changing classes or classes shifting to their next subject, like the ceramics class switching to photography. Shortly after the beginning of the semester, our school had ASB elections once again. which we hold twice a year to inspire students to be involved, either to try and run themselves or vote for their peers that they believe would suit the role. Last week, we held our Sweet Notes fundraiser for the second time, selling 80 Sweet Notes in total for $1 each. And while the turnout was about 12 less sold than last year, we're nonetheless happy with the outcome, as well as the ones that made it happen, including the leadership group and the artists behind the 6 different designs offered on the cards, all of which are current students of Lincoln Hill. In addition to the fundraiser, on Wednesday, students with good attendance were rewarded with root beer floats in the commons of the school, a tradition we try and hold every quarter, promoting our students to be present as often as they can. On Thursday, the ASB group held a meeting discussing the results of the Sweet Notes fundraiser and our upcoming spring social, setting the date for April 24th. During the advisory period next Friday, the seniors will discuss graduation, and registrations for next year will be discussed on the 28th. And with that, that's all for Lincoln Hill.
All right. Thank you, Student Directors. We're down to Board Director's report on business conducted. Director Evans.
I appreciate the community continuing to come out and hang out with us every 2 weeks. It's really nice to look out and see all the faces, so I genuinely appreciate everybody showing up continually, so that's really great. I do have to ask Elizabeth, I watched the video, what are we saving Joel from? Like, I don't understand what we're saving Joel from.
Oh, in the reveal video?
Yes, like what in the world?
You know, I don't know. I think that was an artistic choice, and I really think that was just inspired by Joel and his like energy and exuberance.
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, I really truly think that's what it was.
All right, I've asked a lot of people, and nobody can actually tell me what we're
I
saving
wasn't there.
Joel
I was
from.
only there when it was called. I was not there.
All right, I appreciate it. Congratulations to all of our teams going on to state. I just love having all of these events that are hosted at our facilities. It's great. We put all the money and resources into having a building, and we're using them for things like hosting other schools and hosting events. So I'd love to see that. Thank you for arranging and sort of facilitating all of those great things.
Thank you, Director. Director Murray.
I just want to, I appreciate all of you guys coming out, as Director Evans has so much said. But I also want to touch on the fact that I did miss the last meeting, and it was because I was in Washington, D.C. I did get a chance to meet with the Department of Education, which was very eye-opening and leaves me with much concern about federal funding for our public schools going forward. So, please, keep. Public education is important, and we all need to get involved. So we also got a chance to meet with Senator Marie Cantwell, and she posed some ideas around some additional possible CTE opportunities. So looking forward to kind of helping facilitate some programming in that regard. And we also met with Senator Murray's office staff, and so all of which they're very hard at work trying to figure out how to solve some of these issues that we have around funding for our schools, and the USDA about feeding our students. So overall, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. Being in DC was the first time for me, and we have a lot to be concerned about, but we also hopefully will find our way through this all. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Murray. I want to thank Kevin and Jennifer for your reports tonight. I always appreciate having the reports from our staff. Director King, do you have final comments?
I'd say that a Zoom follow-up to the legislative advocacy conference that I had attended previously. This was labeled mid-session, however, only 51 days into a 105 days session, or is that much, and actually nothing has been accomplished yet. Mainly they gave a timeline for what was coming in terms of political committee reports and that kind of thing for the future. Also, it was recorded, and the recording and the slideshow is available. If you want to go on it before they did.
Thank you, Director Keith. Director Foster, comments?
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for coming, Tom, and everybody. And I, too, went to CTAC to the legislative session with Steve and learned a great deal about what's important. And the bottom line is it's all about the children, and I'm glad to see everybody in that room that cares about the same thing. So thank you so much for coming out on this cold night.
Thank you, Director Foster, and we'll give the last word to Superintendent O'Connell.
Thank you. Thanks once again for the discourse that happened tonight and involvement from the community, boiling down to the support of our students and staff in our schools. I want to highlight one item from the personnel consent agenda tonight, and not to make it a habit of this, but we have another administrator who will retire from the district at the end of this year. I'd like to thank Todd Clunt for his 29 years of service in the district. Nearly 20 of those, which were as principal and assistant principal at Stanwood High School, Stanwood Middle School, and now Church Creek campus. So thanks to Todd. Secondly, the famous prime rib dinner, FFA prime rib dinner and auction, is this Thursday in the Stanwood High School Commons. This is a community event and meal not to be missed. And, it supports over 130 students from Stanwood High School and Lincoln Hill High School that are involved in one of our CTE programs, which is FFA. If we boil that down, that's about 10% of our students that are involved in the FFA. I'm not giving a plug as a former FFA ag teacher, but it really is a great community event. And lastly, just as has been said before, good luck to our student athletes. The girls basketball team, I think, just finished our boys swim, boys wrestling, and girls wrestling team. I don't know if it's been noted tonight, but we think that it might be the most girls wrestlers, the most wrestlers on any team to ever be sent to the NAC Classic any year. So it's quite an accomplishment, and congratulations to them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for being here. There being no further business, the February 18th, 2025 regular board meeting is hereby adjourned.
Yes.